pleasure for me to be here back in Columbus, where I graduated from the Ohio State University 30 years ago. I'm grateful for the education that I received here, and a lot of those core values that I used as a professional golfer were adopted right here as a student and a player for the Lady Buckeyes on a full ride scholarship I'm proud to have back then. I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I've played a lot of great golf courses here in Ohio as I was on the LPGA. And it's always fun to get back here in Ohio to play or to speak to all of you. I'd like to offer my congratulations to the OTF for their 50 years of innovation and growth of the grass industry in partnership with Ohio State in the science and education of young students and their research. I also like to congratulate Bobby Mosier for his assistance with the OTF and his work that he did with the Ohio State and his lifetime achievements that he was awarded for last night. Actually, I love that I was invited here to be here. I've had a lot of respect for the superintendents and crews of many golf courses that I've been at. Who cannot love the mixture of oil from the machine and cut grass every morning? I think it's the best smell in the world, and I've had plenty of experiences with that. As a matter of fact, my first job ever was cutting grass when I was 10 years old. But I've always tended to my own yards in my homes, and actually had a job right here, did an internship with the Ohio State University Scarlet and Gray course when I was a senior at school. That lasted probably a whole month, because after I crashed my first mower into the tree and almost took a finger out in the process, I was demoted to the weed eater, which didn't last long, because after I got a big kink in my neck, my coach pulled me off that because I had a big tournament next weekend, and the starter, you know those dang starters on those weed eaters, they don't work very well. But before all that, I was an active kid, very athletic, very independent. My competitive edge was born the moment I realized I was sharing everything from my toys and food and clothes and bedrooms with my 7 other siblings. A race to the shotgun, or just to get a piece of the couch in front of the TV was my first competitive strike, which soon led to my love for team sports, and then finally on to golf. I played football with the guys down the street, played softball with my friends, ran track with my sister, but it was when I finally got on the golf course that I found my passion, and I knew golf was going to be my life. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the courses there were pretty hard, flat, hard pan bunkers. The greens were hard. It was usually very, very windy, and so you had to learn that bump and run shot into the green, keeping the ball really low at all times. That's how Nancy Lopez became so long off the tee, because she had that little top spin, knockdown drive that hit it past everybody. But once I recruited, because she grew up in New Mexico too, and all that wind. Once I was recruited here to Ohio State, I quickly realized that I have to change my swing and my thinking to be able to play these golf courses here. The Scarlet and Gray, as you know, is very plush fairways, long, rough, deep bunkers, very tough greens. For the most part, I had to learn how to hit the ball higher and fly the ball to the hole. This was really my first experience in really learning how to change my golf swing and my thinking to play a type of golf course, a new kind of grass, or a region of the country. By the time I graduated, I did so with All-American awards, and I finished 6th at Nationals down at Georgia on that red clay soil in that hellish Bermuda grass of the South. I still think to this day that the Bermuda is the hardest grass, especially in the rough, to form a good short game out of. And I've been living in it for 20 years down there in Georgia. I still think it's really hard. But I learned a big lesson there at Nationals that year when the famous, now late Patty Berg did one of her famous clinics, and she told us there, all of us young players, to learn to play without fear, hike up your girdle and let it fly. And another good comment that she told us was to pull the ball out of the rough when we're playing in a practice round, throw it in the fairway, practice from good lies to hit good shots, something that I practice still to this day. But my years on tour, I spanned 25 years, and I like to say that I spanned the great talents of two great players, Kathy Whitworth, the greatest player ever, and the young phenom, Michelle Wie. Kathy Whitworth was still playing full-time as she took me out as her victim number 85 in her 88 wins in a playoff up in Rochester as I was trying to win my first tournament. And the young Michelle Wie was just coming on the professional radar as I was retiring in 2006. But between those players, I played with all the great world-class players like Patty Sheehan, Pat Bradley, Nancy Lopez, Annika Sorenstam, Savory Pak, Christy Kerr, Paula Kramer. But my first win came against Lopez, head-on-head, in 1987 in Springfield, Illinois. I was playing around, we're in the lead group going into the final round on Sunday. And I remember going down about the 15th hole, and I looked at my caddy, Terry McNamara, at the time, and we had been working together for about 8 years, and I said to him, I go, Terry, I'm really starting to get a little bit nervous. I'm a little scared. And he called me Bud, and he says, Bud, I am too, but let's just play for one more hour and see what happens. I'm like, okay, all right, that's a good idea. Let's just keep it ahead of ourselves right here. Come to find out, on the last hole, we come in, I make that beautiful birdie putt on with a 15-footer to win the tournament, head-on-head with Nancy Lopez when she was in her heyday. It was the biggest moment of my life, and that was my first win. People ask me all the time what made me a great player, and because I wasn't really a long hitter, I had to learn how to score by dissecting the golf course. I wasn't able to hit the par 5s and 2, and I had a lot of long clubs into those par 4s. Basically, when you look at the LPGA stats and they put about 50 players on each page with the driving average, I'm on page 4, about 200th back there. But the good thing for me was I was a pretty straight player. I had a deadly pitching game. I was kind of like the Phil Mickelson of the LPGA. And I had an awesome touch with the putter. And with a great course management, that was my forte. For me, when I was in contention to win a tournament, it wasn't those other players out there that I was worried about. It was the golf course, the setup, and how I was going to mentally get myself ready for that situation. I went out there in my practice rounds and I practiced numerous hours just learning those greens, learning the design of each golf hole, and getting ready mentally, playing that golf hole over and over again so that I was ready when the bell rang. I was the type of the player that when the caddy got back to me with the yardage, I already had the club selection ready. I already knew what I had in my mind. I was already visualized my shot. I was the type of player, I just had a good mind as a player and I had a good mind as a caddy. I'm not diminishing the job of my caddy because we worked at this together. Actually, I think I made my caddies better because they went on to work for really great players. My latest caddy, Jason Gilroy, works for number 3 player Christy Kerr at the moment. And remember that caddy Terry McNamara I was telling you I started off with? He went on to win 70 tournaments with Annika Sorenstam. When Annika started to change the revolution in women's golf and started to change the profile of a women's golfing athlete, the ball started to fly a lot further. The golf courses, that meant the golf courses started to get a lot longer, the girls started to work out a lot harder, and the gap between the long ball hitters and the short ball hitters like me became even wider. The girls in the locker room used to laugh at me and say, talk about this Walmart gap. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What's the Walmart? And they go, well, that's the Walmart gap is you could stick a Walmart between your ball and Annika's ball. Really? Ha, ha, ha. Well, it was me laughing at them as I kicked their butts on Sunday. So I had to adjust to that again because my ball actually wasn't going very further. But I had to take out the 3, 4, and 5 irons eventually and start putting in the 9-wood, the 5, I call it the 5-it, but it's a 5 rescue club. Those clubs that I needed to adjust to play the game with them. I had to swallow my ego by putting those 9-woods and rescue clubs in. But as I started to hit it closer to the hole than they were with their 8-iron, I had those same players looking back at me across that Walmart, wondering how in the heck I did that. But I ended up winning 13 tournaments in over a 17-year period. And while I was winning those tournaments, the golf reporters were writing bylines like Rosie Jones, hands of a surgeon, touch of a safecracker, and nerves of steel. Talking about the man has the best hands in the world, Phil Mickelson. I got a chance to play golf with him a couple years ago as the Tour Championship was coming to play at Eastlake in Atlanta. Phil was out at my golf course, and he asked me, Rosie, come out and play golf with me. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not hitting it very good. I don't know if I want to go out and play with Phil Mickelson. But he had a couple guy friends with him, and one of them was a young player trying to make the tour, and the other guy was just a news reporter. And I'm thinking, oh, I can go out and play with these guys. I mean, they're pretty, I'm pretty simple. So we go out there, and he gets us into a game. Phil and I against these two other guys. I'm thinking, this is going to be cake. We're going to make a lot of money here. And he goes, don't worry, I'll back you if we lose. I'm thinking, yeah, right, we're not going to lose. So we go on out there and we play, and after about 6 holes, Phil is like 3 over par. He's sitting in the water twice. I'm 2 under par, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, Phil, come on, let's show me some of that magic. Basically, it was like a 2-hour infomercial with him because he was playing this new Callaway ball, and he wanted to tell these guys, I think he was practicing on us about his spiel in his next outing. We ended up losing $30, but he was a nice guy, turned me on to a great therapist for my neck, and I've been a big fan ever since. But as a player, getting back to this, as a player, our score is our work is our score, and it's always out there for the public to see. We are judged and paid on that score, just as you are in your ability to bring a golf course to its perfection. I know that you too are under the scrutiny of not only each other, but players, TV ratings from TV and from your patrons, owners, guests, ratings from magazines, TV viewers, and commentators. It's a tough job just like playing golf, you're dealing and juggling the constant variables that make this game the toughest game ever. We don't ever really master the swing or perfect the putting stroke because we're human, we're not robots. And we react to our bodies and our surroundings each day on the golf course. Just like you have to react to weather conditions, disease on the golf course, labor problems, mechanical problems. But as players, those players that are better react to those variables are the ones that you're going to see up on the leaderboard. And I'm sure you feel the same way in your profession. The big trick as a professional golfer is to trust that your preparation and draw on your past experience and put faith in your intuition. Having a good attitude and sticking to your commitment and theory has paid off, and especially for me in those 25 years of my career. The point is, our jobs are very similar, and they intersect in a way a lot of people don't really understand or recognize. The common theme is much like most professions, and I call this my CPR system: commitment, preparation, and results. I commit to my decisions, I prepare for all the variables, and the results are my goal. And if that doesn't work, there's always nice to have a good plan B, and I call that the SWAG system. And that was introduced to me by a great club maker down in Florida, Joe Powell. SWAG, it's called the Scientific Wild Ass Guess. So if you're not playing your best and everything that you're going through and your repertoire isn't working, you just got to go out there and wing it sometimes. Well, I know another important aspect of your job is your leadership skills. And as a superintendent or executive in your office, it's your task to go out there and lead your crew to make the best of your golf course or your playing field, your masterpiece, to the best possible shape as possible. It's essential for you to have those leadership skills to make the plan work, and it's teamwork that brings those golf courses and those playing fields into perfection, and especially into those big events. I just recently was given the opportunity to practice my leadership skills as I was captain of the 2011 U.S. Solheim Cup team this past September in Ireland. It was a huge honor for me to represent the United States of America and to be leading the top 12 American players at Killeen Castle just north of Dublin. An experience I will never forget, as the last 2 years came to an exciting finish 8 weeks ago with the U.S. losing by just 1 point at the end of the week to Europe. was a huge honor for me, and the process of captain started 18 months earlier. And I was not only responsible for picking the last 2 players, because the first 10 qualify over the 2-year period, and to figure out the strategy of the competing against the hungry Europe team players, but much, much more. I'd been a professional golfer for 30 years, but now I had somehow become an event planner, fashion consultant, motivational speaker, promoter, music and video expert, team strategizing agent, professional shopper, sports psychologist, food connoisseur, and statistician. I didn't know the job was going to be that much. But by the end of the summer, it was totally a full-time job. And as we started to get close to picking the final 2 players of the team, it was getting pretty hectic. I kept stats on the entire team, top 16 players for the 2 years. And it was important for me to go out there and visit the LPGA and get to know those players as well, because you want to be able to get to know their personalities, know their game plans, know the understanding of their game techniques. Looking at the stats was essential for me to have a clear view of who was really playing well over those 2 years, and especially who was playing well really close up to the event going over to the Solheim Cup. And it was going to be helpful for me to pick those 2 players at the very final end. So knowing their game and their personality and the dynamics of how they were going to work together was really important for me to pick the right players. By the time I did so, I was either an idiot or a genius for picking the rookie, young, talented, long-hitting Ryan O'Toole. I knew I needed a couple of long hitters for this wet layout golf course of Killeen Castle. And both these players, Vicky Hurst, who's probably number 2 in driving average, hitting it at about 290, and the young new rookie who'd only played about 7 events on the LPGA this year in Ryan O'Toole. But Vicky pretty much earned her way onto the spot. She was right there in 11 spots in earning and points. But Ryan was really a wild pick. She had that cocky attitude that you need to go over to Europe and play against those sometimes shrewd players at the Solheim Cup. Especially when you're going overseas and you don't have the crowd with you, you need to have someone that can handle the pressure of being there, and especially playing on a U.S. team. So now we get to Ireland, and remember, golf is basically an individual sport. And most of these professionals have been calling the shots for themselves for quite a few years. When they're at a regular tournament, outside of their tee time and their pro-am spot, they're calling the shots for everything that they do. They play the tournaments they want, they play how many they want, they practice when they want, they eat when they want, they eat with who they want, they do everything on their own. But playing at the Solheim Cup, it's much different. You are there as a team, and it's important for us to become sisters for the week. The atmosphere is important for us to bond as a team as quickly as we can. As much as you can prepare, plot, and strategize your master plan going into an event of this caliber, there's always going to be some unexpected kinks that show up that make you feeling like you're spinning your wheels or your head is about to pop off. Especially when you're dealing with a group of highly professional golf divas that happen to be millionaires, and the money and the ego and the game to prove it. Sequester them all together, all in for 1 week, and now I'm calling the shots? Whoa-ah. Help me. I say this with love in my heart because I was one of those players 7 times on 7 Solheim Cups. And there's nothing easy about that week. High pressure golf, high stress equals balance, balance, balance. I always wondered how that was going to work with my captains. Now I know. I wasn't surprised from the very beginning as when I had a possible injury in my number 1 player before the event even started. I also had teammates not comfortable with their pre-planned partners because of how wet and long the golf course was playing. On paper, I was thinking these partners and these pairings are perfect. And they were perfect, but just not for this golf course. So I had to learn to adjust my plan, commit to a new decision, and decide, just go with a different direction. Right just like that. Making adjustments for yourself is one thing, But making them in a team environment is hard because you can't share every little detail with each other on the team. And you can't possibly know, those people on the outside couldn't possibly understand the actions going on inside the clubhouse and what was happening within the dynamics of the team. And certain personalities could work better with this format, and other personalities can't. It's just knowing when that moment is coming, because there's always going to be a breaking point. For me, whenever I had this breaking point and I was playing in a Solheim Cup or a big tournament, I would tap my caddy on the shoulder and we would head out to the back nine and play a practice round by ourselves. And somewhere on the 11th hole or 12th hole, I would say, this is it. And we would just lay down on the grass with our backs on the grass and let the peace come back into us. It was just a way to balance out and just feel like it all coming back to you and just let everything peel off and try to rebalance. But back to Ireland, basically that week we were a close-knit team playing hard, but having to catch up for most of the first 2 days. I had to make adjustments in the couple of my first pairings and trust my experience and the ability of my players to make the best of a tough situation. The hardest part of my week was at a crucial point on Saturday afternoon when I had to hand in my pairings for the afternoon matches. We were 2 points down, and I had to have a heart-to-heart talk with one of my players and finally sit her down for the afternoon. But then I had to give another player a piece of my mind, but put her back in because I knew she was a better player than what she'd been showing us. And I wanted her to be able to redeem herself, in which she did. And then within that same 30 minutes, I had girls shedding their first tears because I had to sit 2 players down for the entire day, and they'd been working for 2 years to get to that point. But I had to put my best players in or risk a bigger spread going into tomorrow's Sunday singles. So I had a lot of hard decisions going through there and had to talk to both my assistant captains and those players, and they were all team players and were willing to do that for the team. In the end, it was a good decision because we squared it up that day and finished the score at 8-8. Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and do what's best for the team, even if it wasn't in the master plan, to give us all a fighting chance. By the time Sunday midday came around in Sunday singles, it was pandemonium. I had one player down, injured, giving Europe a free point, and other big names struggling with their matches. We were also having to cut our towels into half and spread them out because we were in our third delay and everything was wet. The golf course was wet. As you guys have probably all experienced, it was just like that. We're running out of the golf course. You guys are running in to squeegee off all the greens, put it back together, and get it back for us out to their play. We used our time in the clubhouse to dry ourselves off, get some hot food, and rekindle our spirit to go get those final points. With fire in our heart, we got back on the course, and the golf gods were looking like they were smiling down on us as we were getting to those final few holes. That is, it was all looking great until the last 40 minutes. And sometimes you learn more by losing than you can ever win by winning, by the big win. And this was a finish. It was a testament of gutsy golf by Europe to beat us in those final moments. You can tell it still pisses me off a little bit, but came down to one putt on the 16th hole in the 10th match. And I'm thinking, if this putt doesn't go in, I would be standing here holding that crystal. But it did go in, and because it did, the momentum shifted. And the beauty of this game of golf and the fire of that competition gave the viewers some of the most exciting golf ever witnessed at the Solheim Cup. The tradition and talent that qualifies the Solheim Cup as the most coveted cup in women's team competition is something that will always be cherished in my heart as a player, and now as my experience as a Solheim captain leading some of the top players that have ever played this game. It was the proudest moment of my life to stand on that stage with those players, win or lose, and I will always know that. One of the things I love about my life as a professional golfer, besides the engine oil and the cut grass, is all the unique experiences I've given on and off the golf course. The places I've been, the people I've met and played golf with. as well as the culture that I've learned in different parts of the world. I feel privileged to have played on many golf courses around the world as well as here in our own beautiful country. Just this year, I was able to take Team USA to Pine Valley for one of our practice sessions there. And we were breaking barriers as we were the first women to actually stay on site in their lodge there. And then to play golf on a day other than a Sunday at 2 p.m. We played on Monday. Something I will never forget. I will never forget some of the great golf courses I've played here in Ohio, including right here at OSU, where I began at the Scarlet and Gray, and those courses in Columbus, New Albany Country Club, and Tartan Fields, Avalon Lakes in Youngstown, High Meadows in Toledo, and in Dayton at the Country Club of the North, where I won, and of course at the Solheim Cup when we played here at Muirfield Village. I've played some memorable golf on some really fantastic golf courses, and I will always know and appreciate the dedication and work that all of you have done to make our golfers' experience as challenging and rewarding as you do. In closing, I'm fortunate for those opportunities. I've had a true, and I truly feel that if you believe in yourself and keep sight of your goals and have the ability to adjust to change, success will follow. I appreciate the invitation to be with you here today. Thank you, and happy holidays. Thank you.